You get a close up of the caliber? You see that, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these two bolts are what hold the caliber in place. You want to loosen the two bolts up and then start taking them out. The reason why you don't want to take out one and then start taking out the other one is because if one is tight and one is out, then the caliber starts to move and you can't get the other screw out and it becomes awkward. So you want to keep the one screw in the top once you loosen the whole thing up, just to keep it in place, so that way the caliber doesn't move until you're ready for the caliber to move. You put the screws somewhere safe where you know where they are, and then you can start pulling the caliber off. Just a little persuasion to get the caliber off. Now these are the pistons inside the caliber. Now what's happening here is that the brake pads are so worn down that the pistons are far out. So what we have to do is get the pistons back in to its original position to get the new pads in, because the pads, of course, are thicker than the old ones. So there's no way we'll be able to get the new pads in position with the calibers when they're extended. So now that we have the caliber off, we have the brake pads, and we can take the brake pad off. That's one brake pad. It just slides out. It's got two clips. The other one hopefully slides out too. This one's shot, as you can tell. Then we can get the brake pads in place. And sometimes they're tight, but if you push on it with the clip, it should slide right into place. Brake pads in position now. Right, the clips and everything's nice and tight. Now, as you can tell, I put the caliber on top of a paint can. The reason why you do this is because the brake line and the caliber, they won't reach the ground, and they put too much pressure on the brake lines. You don't want to put any pressure on the brake lines. You want to make sure that the caliber and the brake line has enough play in it so there's no pull on the caliber or the brake line. So now that I have that done, I can pull the caliber out a little bit, get an old brake pad, and put it back into position where the pistons are. And now I'm going to get a C-clamp, and I'm going to close the pistons up slowly. The reason why I put the brake pad on is so the pistons go in evenly. Don't have one piston out further than the other. Now, since we're pushing the pistons in, we're going to have to stop for a second, open the hood, and open the master cylinder for the brake fluid. And if I don't take the cap off, then the fluid won't have anywhere to go, and I won't be able to get the pistons back in correctly. So now, we got the old brake pad. Take the C-clamp without damaging the brake line or the caliber. Now it's in position. Now I'm going to open up the hood. We go to the master cylinder for the brakes. And open it up. Now, the fluid. Shoreyard's going to watch the brake fluid to make sure not too much comes out. If I do it slowly, it should just go up and push the fluid that's missing back into the master cylinder. See it bubbling?
Not yet. Yeah, now.
You see it moving?
Yeah.
Okay, now what I'm doing is because of the way the cylinders are set up here, we have two cylinders on this caliber, and there's a brake line right behind the center of the cylinder. So what I had to do was take the brake pad, put it on the cylinders, and put two C-clamps, and to use two C-clamps so I could get both cylinders down as evenly as possible. Now Shoreyard is watching the brake fluid so it doesn't come out too much on the engine. Shouldn't really come out at all. Now I'm pushing this cylinder in, but now I'll start with this one, and I'll make a half a turn on this one. And as you can see, you'll see the cylinders going in as I'm doing it. which is what you want. We got to get the cylinders all the way in, and sometimes when you do these and you can't get the cylinders in, it's because the caliper is seized up and you need a new caliper. But in our case, so far we're lucky with this side, and we'll reposition the C-clamp, and the cylinders are going in easily.
Bubble.
And it's bubbling just a little bit but not coming out. So let me reposition this. It takes a little patience with this to get everything set up correctly. But you want to try to stay in the center of the cylinder so the whole cylinder goes in evenly. What we're doing here is we're pushing both cylinders in. Okay, so what I'm going to continue to do is do the cylinders until I get them all the way in. And it looks like we're almost there. The rubber boots around the cylinders on these cylinders look pretty good. Now, because the brake pads are brand new, they're very thick, the cylinder pretty much has to go all the way in. Let's go as flat as possible, where you're not going to get the cylinder back on, the caliper back on. How is it, Shariad?
Yep.
Okay, I think we got them all the way in. Now what we do is we loosen it up. In the clips, everything looks good. We're going to try to slide the caliper back on into position. Now, these there we go. Now we have the two bolts that go that hold the cylinder, the caliper in. We want to position those in place. You feel it once it catches. You don't want to tighten it up until you get the bottom one in too. So everything is positioned. I can feel the threads catching, and I'm tightening them by hand, which means they're lined up properly and I'm not cross-threading them, which is something you definitely don't want to do. Now I'm going to tighten the bolts back up. I'm going to get the top one snug, and then I'm going to get the bottom one snug. Okay, the bottom one's snug. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten them one by one. I'm going to go back and forth between top and bottom until I feel that they're tight enough. They're definitely tight enough. Now once we get done with all the brakes, what we're going to do is, this is a bleeder valve, and we're going to open this up, and Shoryard's going to sit in the car and he's going to pump on the brakes until fluid comes out steadily so we know there's no air in the line. Just a little bit. Alright, Shoryard, go ahead. And you can see the fluid coming out steady. So now I close the valve up and tighten it up. Now, it's nice and tight. It's not going to loosen up. I can put the boot back on to make sure it stays the same. Now we go to the other side.